Hi everybody, welcome to another adventure. When I was a little boy, my mother used to wake me up early to watch the little robins looking for worms on our front lawn. And she used to always tell me that the early bird gets the worm. Now, even though my mother and I were watching birds eat worms, the story of the early bird catching the worm isn't just about birds and worms. The story of the early bird catching the worm, in fact, is more about arriving early to places, being prepared, and getting yourself ready before you need to do something. Those that arrive early to class have more time to get themselves settled. Those that start a project early have more time to revise it and make it just how they want. Those that start a pollination skit early have plenty of time to revise and change and add things to make it really, really cool. So, the early bird gets the worm basically means that the earlier you start something, the more time you have to make it as great as you want and to accomplish what you want. As a little boy, looking out the window, looking at robins hunting worms, and listening to my mother tell the story of the early bird catching the worm, little did I know that 30 years later, I'd find myself walking through the forest, learning and telling the story about a plant that follows that very same philosophy. The early bird gets the worm. Now, this plant does not eat worms. It doesn't eat small worms. It doesn't eat big worms. In fact, it doesn't eat any worms at all. What this plant has done, though, is found a way to adapt to its environment in a very interesting, unique, and specialized way. So on this early spring day, I was walking along the forest trail. I was thinking about early. I was thinking about early birds. I was thinking about early plants. And I was thinking about spring. And as I thought about spring and thought about early birds and thought about early plants, I started to wonder, what exactly is early? And how do scientists, and how do even the plants know what it means to be early? What does it mean to be early in the forest? How do we know that we're still early in spring? The leaves give us a clue. In summer and fall, this mountain laurel has only dark green leaves. But in the springtime, it has some dark green leaves that were on the tree last year, and it has some new light green leaves that are just starting to grow. In summer and fall, this beech tree has leaves almost as big as my hand. But in the springtime, the leaves are much smaller, more like the size of my fingers. And in summer and fall, the pawpaw leaves can be as big as 2 of my hands. But now in early spring, they're about the size of my pinky finger. So spring was here, and we were much closer to the beginning of spring than we were to the start of summer. So I thought of spring and I thought of summer, and I was lost in my thoughts. I was enjoying just time outside, kicking a few sticks, jumping on a stump, balancing on a log, even jumping off a log. Woo! And as I was having so much fun in the forest, thinking about spring, thinking about the trees, thinking about the early birds, I really wasn't paying that much attention to where I was going. And as I stopped paying attention to where I was going, all of a sudden, I tripped. And the whole world started spinning and 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 spinning. And eventually, I woke up. And when I woke up, I found myself deep in the forest, standing in the mud in the middle of a swampy wetland, surrounded by lots of plants with really big leaves. And not only were there lots of plants, but buzzing all around the plants, flies, gnats, and mosquitoes. Not only are there lots of flies, gnats, and mosquitoes, but when I smell the leaves, ew, they're really, really stinky. And as I smelled the yucky smell and saw the great big leaves and saw all the flies, gnats, and mosquitoes buzzing around me, I realized that these stinky plants with the really big leaves are skunk cabbage. Skunk cabbage plants start growing their leaves much earlier than other plants. By growing their leaves early, before the leaves of all the other plants come out, the skunk cabbage plant can get lots and lots of sunlight before the big trees get their big leaves and start blocking the sun. By growing their leaves before the big trees start blocking the sun with their own leaves, lots and lots of sunlight will filter down on these and they'll have a chance to get lots of energy and grow. By growing their leaves big and growing their leaves early, skunk cabbage plants can get lots of energy from the sun. Now, another advantage to getting lots of energy from the sun early on is the skunk cabbage can prepare for the dry season later this summer. Right now, this whole area is really wet, but come August, it's going to be really dry. These great big leaves that the skunk cabbage has are collecting lots of energy and using that energy to make really, really, really strong and long roots. So the great big leaves allow it to get energy from the sun when there's less competition for light, and the great big leaves allow the skunk cabbage to grow strong roots so that it can get water later on when this swampy area dries up.